We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Disseminate propaganda to influence people's minds, and this is a major function of the CIA.
Hussein and his regime are concealing their efforts to produce more weapons of mass destruction.
Welcome back to Notify America. We have multiple pressing stories to get to, stories that include major problems for Fulton County DA Fani Willis, the Georgia prosecutor who's trying to throw Donald Trump in prison. Well, get ready for a showdown because everything comes out in 2 days on Thursday. We'll explain. Also, the White House is on the defensive again after the awful week that President Joe Biden just had. We have some clips from yesterday's press briefing you're going to want to see. Also, an impeachment time bomb tucked away inside the Senate's $96 billion Ukraine aid package, a bill that's about to be passed, by the way. Should be passed later today. Very concerning story. And the woman who's responsible for Colorado's elections and for whose name shows up on their ballots goes full Looney Tunes on national television over the weekend. We have the clip. But before we get started, thank you for liking and sharing these videos. It really helps me out. Also, consider subscribing so you don't miss these daily updates. President Biden is coming off of a bruising week following the release of Special Counsel Hur's report, which found that Joe Biden is effectively unfit for office due to his mental decline, waning memory. Well, the president didn't help his case at all yesterday when he met with the King of Jordan at the White House. We have a short clip of what happened, but to summarize it, all in a matter of like a minute, he manages to point to an imaginary Barack Obama, asks where the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia is, thinking that he's in the audience for some reason, forgets the name of King Abdullah's wife, then gets lost and confused while standing behind the king, and then surprises everybody by walking away without taking any questions. Even the King of Jordan was like, hey, aren't we supposed to be taking questions here? It's a short clip, yet like so much happens in it. Watch this.
Let me start by welcoming His Majesty, the King of Jordan. He's been a good friend. Abdullah, welcome back to the White House, man. Welcome back. And by the way, Barack's looking at you in the corner over there. And along with Queen Rihanna, who's meeting with Jill now, and the Queen and the Crown Prince Hussein. Where is the Prince out there? I thought he was coming out. At any rate, Your Majesty, over to you.
Mr. President, thank you for your gracious hospitality accorded to me and my delegation today. My visit today carries an added meaning as our countries this year mark 75 years of exemplary strategic towards peace. Thank you.
Look, there's no way he can last 5 more years in that job. His wife and his kids should do something about it. They should talk him out of running again. Jill Biden especially, she knows better than anyone what's happening to her husband, but she doesn't appear to care that he's embarrassing himself day in and day out because, I don't know, she loves the power maybe. Being in power is clearly more important to her. And it's becoming cruel at this point. He's clearly getting worse. He's noticeably worse today than he was just 2 months ago. And since the special counsel's report, a lot of people are now demanding President Biden take a cognitive test at his upcoming annual physical, have his doctor come out afterward and give a press conference the same way that Donald Trump did and the White House physician did after Trump's physical. Watch as reporters softly question and ask about this at yesterday's White House press briefing. Watch this.
Do you plan on the press getting a heads up before the physical happens, or will we find out once it has taken place?
We're going to do it the way that we've done it the last 2 years. It's not going to be anything different. So the way that we've approached this the last 2 years will be the same way that we do this this third year.
Does the White House think that the the idea of the president taking a cognition test, a cognitive test, as a part of this physical is a legitimate idea, particularly just on the heels of the special counsel report, more polling, as my colleague Selena just mentioned, showing that many American people have concerns about that.
Look, I got this question last week as well, and I'm just going to say what Dr. O'Connor, it's kind of what he said to me about a year ago when the report came out last year, obviously on his physical, which is the president proves every day how he operates, how he thinks, right? But by dealing with world leaders, by making really difficult decisions on behalf of the American people, whether it's domestic, whether it's national security. And so he shows it every day on how he thinks, how he operates. And so that is how the Dr. O'Connor sees it, and that's how I'm going to leave it.
What do you think about the idea of taking that kind of a test?
I mean, look, and I talked about this last week too on I believe, on Friday. I have known this president since 2009. He is not just my boss, he's also a mentor to me.
Now, she didn't answer the question there about the test, but they did release a statement. The White House released a statement saying President Biden will not be taking a cognitive exam during his physical this year. Colorado Secretary of State Jenna Griswold came out over the weekend to defend her state's decision to remove Trump's name from the ballot, defending Colorado's Supreme Court decision to remove his name, claiming it's suppressive to allow Trump on the ballot. Let me say that again. Her claim is that it's suppressive to allow Donald Trump to be on the ballot, to allow her state to vote for him. What? Comparing Trump to a non-natural born citizen. That's what she does. That he's no different under the U.S. Constitution, she said, given Trump is an oath-breaking insurrectionist. You can't make this up. Watch this.
States like Colorado believe that it is confusing and potentially suppressive to put a candidate on a ballot who cannot assume office. That's why, just like that non-natural born citizen, we kept Donald Trump off, because he is disqualified, from our perspective, under the Constitution, for being an oath-breaking insurrectionist.
These are the type of people that we have running our country, folks. Zero shame, zero thought to how 160 million people may disagree with you. Well, luckily, the U.S. Supreme Court will decide if this is constitutional or not, and in the opening arguments, 8 of the 9 justices appeared to find Colorado's justification dubious, to say the least. In another story, the U.S. Senate is working their butts off to pass a new $96 billion foreign aid package. This is the carve-out from the original border security deal that we've been talking about for the last few weeks that epically fell apart last week. And notice the difference, by the way, in the price tags, right? The original deal, the full border security bill, had a price tag of $118 billion. Well, that fell apart. So now the Senate, what they did was they carved out the border part from the deal, so everything else is still in the deal, except for the southern border provisions. We went from $118 billion down to $96 billion. So the border security deal, as it was named, had barely anything to do with the southern border. $96 billion of it was slated for Ukraine and for Israel. Well, it looks like the Senate will have the votes to pass it sometime today, on Tuesday, as the Democrats currently have a majority in the Senate. And unfortunately, the Senate is made up of many establishment-type Republicans who love just pissing our tax dollars away, folks. As an example, listen to Republican Mitt Romney last night on the Senate floor trying to convince his colleagues to vote yes on this bill. Watch this.
The vote we will soon take to provide military weapons for Ukraine is the most important vote we will ever take as United States senators.
That's what he said. An insane comment, an untrue comment. These are the types of Republicans we have in the Senate right now. People who think voting yes on a bill that provides nothing for Americans, doesn't help America at all, Americans at all, but uses $96 billion of our tax dollars to fund an unwinnable war. Explain how that could possibly be the most important vote he'll ever take. Again, it's insane. These people aren't working for us. Rand Paul, one of the few good U.S. senators, in my opinion, tried to stall the passing of the bill last night, which any one senator can technically try to do by forcing these time-consuming votes. Here's what Rand had to say. Watch this.
Open the champagne, pop the cork. The Senate Democrat leader and the Republican leader are on their way to Kiev. They've got $60 billion they're bringing. I don't know if it'll be cash in pallets, but they're taking your money to Kiev. Now, they didn't have much time, really no time and no money to do anything about our border. We're being invaded. A literal invasion's coming across our border. 800,000 people came illegally in the last month, and all they had time to do in the Senate was get the money, get the cash pallets, load the planes, get the champagne ready, and fly to Kiev.
Now, where are the presidents? Well, former President Donald Trump came out opposed. Joe Biden's obviously 100% for it, or, his people are for it, and he's just saying he's for it. Not sure if he actually knows what's in it, but Donald Trump came out opposed to the bill and said that the U.S. should not grant any new foreign aid unless it's a loan, he said, which this $96 billion is not. Now, when it passes the Senate, it will likely fail in the House, hopefully, as this bill doesn't only fund the Ukraine war, it does something else. Buried in the bill's text is what Senator J.D. Vance calls an impeachment time bomb, something the Republicans who are voting yes are fully aware of, language that will set up a future Trump president for impeachment should he try and stop funding the war in Ukraine. This is important. We all know how Trump has said multiple times he'll settle the Ukraine war, saying he'll resolve it in 24 hours. Well, the bill includes $1.6 billion for foreign military financing in Ukraine and $13.7 billion for the Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative. These funds expire on September 30th, 2025, nearly a year into the next president's term. These are the exact same accounts President Trump was impeached for pausing back in December 2019. And 2 weeks ago, the Washington Post, establishment Washington's paper of choice, quoted a U.S. official saying as much. This is verbatim. Quote, "Not incidentally, a U.S. official said the hope is that the long-term promise, again, assuming congressional buy-in, will also future-proof aid for Ukraine against the possibility that former President Donald Trump wins his re-election bid," unquote. Here's J.D. Vance explaining this to Tucker Carlson last night. Watch this.
The second thing I want to say, Tucker, though, is that it doesn't just fund Ukraine in 2024. And this is the most important point. It actually funds Ukraine in 25 and 26. Now, what's the problem with that? Say, for example, that we have a new president in 2025. That president would be handcuffed by the promises that we are making in law to Ukraine today. If you go back to 2019, Tucker, to try to give you a sense of why this matters. In 2019, the U.S. House impeached then President Donald Trump on the theory that they had appropriated money to Ukraine and Donald Trump refused to send it to Ukraine. So if Trump is elected president again and become president on January of 2025, he will conduct diplomacy. And if that diplomacy does not include sending additional billions to Ukraine, there is a theoretical argument, a predicate, if you will, for impeaching Donald Trump because they have tried to tie his hands. And the final point I'll make on this, Tucker, is that the Washington Post has already said, based on leaks from inside the intel community, the purpose of this legislation is to tie a future President Trump's hands. We're not just sending billions to Ukraine in 2024. We're trying to make it impossible for the next president to conduct diplomacy on his terms. It's anti-democratic, and it will lead to endless war all over the world.
And another story, Fulton County DA Fani Willis, the DA who decided to bring the largest RICO case in U.S. history against Donald Trump and his associates. A RICO case, folks, a type of case used to go after mobsters, she's using to go after Donald Trump, trying to throw him in prison for the rest of his life. Well, she's about to face the music as a Georgia judge is scheduled to hear evidence this Thursday in his courtroom over bombshell claims about Fani's love affair with her lead prosecutor. It turns out Fani getting some Fani on the taxpayer's dime may be disqualifying. At Thursday's hearing, one of the witnesses will be Fani's father, who will testify on behalf of his daughter amid cohabitation allegations. And to top it off, former President Trump's planning to attend the hearing, something he doesn't have to do, by the way, assuming he just wants to be there to watch all of this. The Fulton County DA's office, Fani's office, was forced to acknowledge the relationship last month after one of Trump's associates made this bombshell filing. The judge has said he plans to weigh all the evidence, and he forewarned it could lead to disqualification for Fani in that specific Trump associate case. So at best, she'll be disqualified from that one Trump-related case. But overall, you have to think, this is a terrible look for Fulton County. Your county, your DA that you elected is involved in trying to bring down a former president over the fake elector allegations, and in the process you decide to hire the least qualified person, the least qualified lawyer in the state as lead attorney, someone who has zero experience in criminal trials, let alone RICO trials, let alone the largest RICO case and trial in history. And then this unqualified lead attorney allegedly is overbilling Fulton County by the tune of around $700,000 in total so far, and then reportedly using some of that money to book these luxury romantic getaways and vacations with the DA. Now, in one of the allegations that will be examined on Thursday will be why Nathan Wade, the lead attorney, billed for 24-hour-a-day work. How can a lawyer work 24 hours straight? That means he works all day on the Trump case, then he's working all night on it as well. Is he billing his Fani time as work? I don't know. Hopefully we'll find out on Thursday. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.